Every guy wishes for a baddie wife and a family, just like our big boy right here. You see, has been lonely his whole life. But one Christmas Eve, after donating to a Santa comes and makes his wish come true. Now he finds himself awakened in another world. Slowly rising, he rubs his head, sensing discomfort. The moment he opens his eyes, confusion fills his expression. He quickly realizes he is trapped inside a wooden cage being dragged by a wagon in what appears to be a medieval setting. Wearing nothing but his underwear, he begins to panic, trying to make sense of where he ended up. Our boy wishes for a baddie wife, but instead got turned into slave. Anyways, beside him, a rugged bearded man silently observes, while a blonde prisoner marked with scars shares the cramped space. Looking around at the others, our boy concludes that the environment resembles the Middle Ages. Curious, he glances outside and notices armored soldiers walking alongside the wagon, speaking an unfamiliar language. Piecing together the unfamiliar language and the medieval surroundings, he arrives at an unbelievable conclusion. Somehow he has been transported to another world. Struggling to process everything, he curls up on the floor, clutching his legs while trying to steady his breathing. His attention shifts to a motionless prisoner in the corner, prompting him to wonder if the man is already dead. Carefully, our boy reaches out and lightly touches the man's shoulder, apologizing before stealing the man's clothes. So you see, that's how you steal kindly to others. Exhausted, he lies back on the floor, recalling Santa's bizarre promise to grant his wish. Staring upward, he questions whether he ever understood the meaning of happiness. Time passes without him knowing how many days have gone by. The wagon continues moving endlessly through dense forests, carrying its captives forward. During this time, he realizes that everyone inside the cage is enslaved. Gradually, he understands that the soldiers are transporting them until they find buyers willing to purchase human lives. Eventually, the sound of a lock opening interrupts the monotony. The prisoners are lined up outside as a village chief inspects them, selecting those in the best condition. Though his pride is wounded by being reduced to a slave, he finds a small sense of hope. Believing in his physique, he assumes he will be purchased quickly and escape the wagon. That thought becomes the first moment of optimism since his arrival. Reality soon shatters that hope. After being rejected by several villages in succession, his expression grows empty. Anyone would be depressed that even being a slave you're still getting rejected. The wagon moves on again, leaving another village behind without a sale. Lying on the wooden floor, he struggles to understand how his life reached such a point. Remembering his mother's advice to live fully, he questions whether continuing still holds any meaning. Memories of childhood pressures resurface, weighing heavily on his mind. Closing his eyes tightly, our boy wonders if he can endure the ordeal. The image of Santa's promise returns, lingering in his thoughts. Pushed to his limits, he curses the so-called happiness and mentally rejects both worlds. Clenching his fists, he believes he understands what must be done. Overwhelmed by despair, he considers abandoning everything to escape the pain. Yet reason interrupts, pushing that thought away. Deep within, his desire for a baddie wife resurfaces, giving him a reason to keep going. Though drained, he finds a small sense of calm within the turmoil. Suddenly, a piece of fresh bread is handed through the bars. A gentle baddie woman stands before the cage, offering food to the slaves. Placing the bread in his hands, she shows rare kindness. Beside her, a small girl peeks from behind her skirt, observing him curiously. Surprised by the sight, he stares at the pair illuminated by sunlight. The scene shifts to a quiet cabin deep within the forest. Inside, the woman and the little girl sit at a table in silence. The child eats slowly, holding her bowl carefully. Concerned, the woman slides her own portion toward the girl, urging her to eat more. Hesitating, the child refuses and softly says that someone else must also be hungry. The woman explains that she wants the girl to be well fed, but the child continues to refuse, showing empathy. Moved, the woman accepts her decision and agrees to share the meal equally. The calm is suddenly broken by loud knocks at the door. The village chief arrives, delivering an order that the woman must take a slave as her husband. Shocked, she is told to prepare and return to the mountains with him the next day. After he leaves, tension fills the room as she holds the girl tightly. Fear overtakes her, as she recalls the threat of abuse and the uncertainty of the future. Despite everything, she realizes that escape is impossible. Watching the child sleep, she resolves not to abandon her. The memory of the girl's past suffering reinforces her determination to protect her. Remembering the child's cries of despair, she feels her heart tighten. The image of the girl left alone, searching for comfort, remains vivid in her mind. Lost in thought, the woman reflects on her own painful past. She recalls being sold by her father and abused by the man she was forced to marry. That moment marked the beginning of her suffering. Yet it was the girl who approached her with kindness when she was at her lowest. After the man disappeared into the mountains, the two were left alone in the isolated cabin, bound by shared hardship. The man's fate was tragic, as he was believed to have lost his life to wolves during one of his routine hunts. Okay, finally something good happens. Anyways, the news of his passing brought relief to some, yet it also carried deep desperation for future survival. Without a guaranteed provider, worry shaped the young woman's expression in a heavy and silent manner. In that cruel village, a woman without a husband was left completely vulnerable, exposed to the mercy of fate. Returning to the present, the duo walks hand in hand through the village gates under the bright sun. Excited by the sudden commotion, the little girl points in surprise towards something flashy in the middle of the street. Flashy as cheap slaves, I think is what she think. Fascinated, she indicates a large wooden cage filled with prisoners placed at the center of the area. The woman follows the child's gesture, witnessing the grim reality of the enslaved captives. Moved by pity, they both slowly approach the carriage. Inside the cramped cell, our boy reacts in shock upon noticing the approaching duo. He widens his eyes, frozen by the unexpected sight before him. The old humiliations echo relentlessly, eroding what little self-esteem remains. The ghost of constant rejection forces him to shrink under the weight of his insignificance. However, the painful illusion is cut off by the gentle and focused gaze of the young woman in front of him. Her expression reflects warmth, bringing a comfort he has never felt before. Without prejudice or disgust, she offers warm bread through the thick iron bars. The simple act radiates peace within the brutal environment. Before he can respond, locals arrive, interrupting the moment and drawing attention away from the cage. The leader orders the woman to return home while taking charge of the situation. She obeys and slowly walks away with the child, who glances back at our boy one last time. Holding the bread tightly, the boy watches them leave in silence before devouring it hungrily inside the cage. Moments later, soldiers arrive and drag him out without ceremony. He is thrown onto the grass, still overwhelmed by hunger and humiliation. The guards gather as the village chief announces the procedure in the local language. The soldiers grabs their hand and cuts it deeply with a dagger. Blood begins to drip onto a strange leather document placed before him. The parchment glows with an intense blue light, startling him deeply. Exhausted and confused, he questions the nature of this magical world. One of the soldiers stated that our boy here have mana, which lead to the old man choosing him. After the ritual ends, the contract is handed to the village leader. Sealing the agreement, the soldiers leave and abandon him kneeling on the ground. A sack of supplies is dropped as temporary compensation, while an elder explains the situation regarding his status and future obligations in the village. Later, the calm is broken by loud knocks on the cabin door. The woman instantly panics and holds the child tightly. A neighbor appears at the window demanding immediate entry. The door opens to reveal the man dragging the newly purchased slave inside. Overwhelmed, the woman nervously complies with the elder's instructions. Inside the cabin, our boy tries to adjust to the darkness while remaining on the floor. The woman stares at him in visible fear. He observes both of them and begins to realize the situation regarding his new role. As he remains slumped, she feels her heart race from his intimidating presence. Suddenly, a memory flashes. He recognizes her as the same girl who offered him bread at the cage earlier, leaving him momentarily stunned. I think our boy finally found his baddie. But a confused look overcomes our boy as he realizes she is unable to stop shaking uncontrollably. The reflection is interrupted when the villager grabs his arm, demanding action in incomprehensible words. The guide continues pushing the large man toward the two of them, increasing the resident's panic. Trying to keep his balance while walking, our boy ends up moving too close to his newly assigned partner. Complaining about their exaggerated stiffness, the native suddenly intercepts our boy's hand without warning. Without ceremony, the old man forces direct contact, joining their hands abruptly. Proud of his matchmaking, the resident walks away while praising the so-called beautiful union. Stuck in the awkward moment, the man processes the overwhelming tension in the air. The memory of Santa's promise returns to haunt his thoughts. Observing the young woman's face, he compares her fragile appearance to a defenseless small rabbit. The girl beside her mother shows similar innocence like a mongoose. Confused by the irony of fate, he realizes the situation was intentionally arranged. The two women remain huddled together, fearing the presence of the giant before them. Frustrated, he recalls the humiliation from the slave wagon and considers the world travel pointless. With his head lowered, an angry aura begins forming around him. In resentment, our boy swears to confront Santa if he ever encounters him again. Showing irritation, he scares the family with his expressionless anger. At dawn, our boy follows two villagers through a dense forest. Unable to understand their conversation, he gradually becomes exhausted and loses rhythm. One villager turns and extends a hand in a supposed friendly gesture. Confused, he accepts it as a simple greeting. The grip, however, tightens painfully as pressure increases. Feeling discomfort, our boy assumes it is a rough local custom and resists. Tired of being underestimated, he refuses to submit to anyone in that world. In a sudden reaction, he crushes the man's fingers, causing him to scream in pain. The fearful man hands him a wooden bow. Observing the weapon, our boy interprets the situation as surrender rather than hostility. Through exaggerated gestures, "Alright, this is being weird." Anyways, the guide begins teaching basic hunting instructions. The improvised demonstration clearly indicates their target as a small animal in the forest. A sudden rustle in the bushes interrupts the lesson and draws attention forward. The villager signals urgently toward a nearby bush. A white rabbit quietly eats inside the vegetation, unaware of danger. The guide demands an immediate shot, unaware of his lack of experience. Nervous, our boy pulls the bowstring while doubting his ability. As his stance stabilizes, the weapon glows with a faint blue magical aura. Both men stand stunned by the destructive force. The rabbit escapes unharmed, leaving them speechless. Surprised by the destruction, our boy tries to understand the power hidden within the simple bow. He remains silent, processing the unexpected magical force. He then notices his wife approaching with a child through the forest. His heart reacts slightly upon seeing them again. The hunters pause while the women approach calmly. Soon they sit together and begin a simple meal on the ground. The woman and child eat while our boy silently observes. A bowl of hot stew is offered to him. He begins eating quietly while watching the mother feed the child. The gentle interaction brings him unexpected calmness. He reflects on the concept of family, something foreign throughout his entire life. Yet now he feels he has gained one unintentionally. He briefly considers revenge against Santa, but abandons the thought. Instead, he expresses silent gratitude for the strange gift of this life. Okay, I think we all gonna find a Santa beggar after this video. Anyways, the next day, their routine continues along a forest trail. Carrying supplies, our boy looks back to check on them. The woman appears exhausted while holding the child's hand. Unable to communicate, he regrets not being able to help verbally. He decides he must adapt quickly to this world. Suddenly, he stops walking in silence on the dirt road. A childhood memory surfaces about protecting others without hesitation. Motivated, he turns back toward the two women that are struggling and tired of climbing. They become frightened as he approaches. The child trembles in fear. Our boy crouches and attempts to reassure them of safety. The woman misunderstands and pleads for mercy in panic. The child begins crying loudly. Realizing their fear, he carefully adjusts his expression. He politely says, "Excuse me," and extends his arms slowly. In one motion, he lifts the woman into his arms, surprising her completely. He then picks up the child with ease using his other arm. Calmly, he stabilizes both of them against his body while carrying supplies on his back. Despite the weight, he shows no strain at all. The child, surprised by his gentleness, resting on our boy's broad shoulder, the woman widens her eyes, amazed by the situation. She urges them to hold on tight as our boy resumes walking. Moving forward with ease, he finds it strange how light they both feel, even while carrying everything else. Focused on improving that, he resolves to learn the language and master hunting soon, so he can fill the house with meat. Looking into his partner's eyes, our boy realizes he will have a lot of work ahead of him. Gradually, the young woman's tension decreases, and she allows herself to rest her head on his neck. Her delicate hands grip the giant's shirt firmly. Feeling that subtle squeeze, our boy continues the journey in silence. The long walk through the forest finally ends in a more isolated area. The old man says goodbye, bowing before a rustic cabin while our boy expresses his gratitude for the help. After the villager's departure, the outsider stares at the crumbling wooden structure. Analyzing the new home, he notices that the place feels even colder than his old rooftop room. Our boy feels a shiver just imagining the hardship awaiting them in an unheated place. Pushing the old door open with his free hand, he enters the residence. However, the scene inside leaves our boy completely confused. Once on solid ground, the young wife gets a huge scare when she sees the environment. Tears begin to stream down her face, prompting our boy to question the reason for her distress. Desperate, the young lady runs out of the shack. Our boy follows her, trying to grasp the seriousness of the situation. Standing in the middle of the completely empty living room, he finally understands the cause of such panic. The young lady deduces that while he was trapped in the village, the locals took absolutely everything from the house. Without materials to fix the walls and no weapons to ward off predators, the situation becomes extremely critical. Walking through the yard, he finds the young lady collapsed on the grass, crying uncontrollably. To calm things down, he sits beside her on the ground. In a friendly gesture, he places his hand on top of her head. Surprising the young woman, gently patting her head, he tries to reassure her of safety. He softly tells his wife not to worry about anything, and with teary eyes, she tries to interpret the intentions of that giant stranger. The young lady's mind fills with cruel doubts since they do not share the same language, and he lacks the skills needed to hunt. The fear of not being able to survive together in that hostile environment tightens her chest. However, a calm and welcoming smile forms on our boy's face. Radiating confidence, he assures her that he will protect his new family from any danger. Even without understanding the exact words, the affectionate gesture drives away the young woman's anxiety. The tears continue, but the feeling of dread slowly fades from her eyes. Deep down, the woman wonders why she feels such relief around him. Recalling his past, Joan thinks about how he lived alone ever since his parents passed away in his original world. Even so, the young man fought hard and endured every hardship to survive. Keeping that in mind, our boy realizes that now he has no reason to falter since he finally has a family. Radiating determination, he affirms that he will do whatever it takes to provide for them. Sitting on the grass, the young wife wipes away her tears while listening to his comforting presence. Suddenly, a noise catches their attention. The little girl runs toward them, pleading for the big man not to harm the woman. In a protective impulse, the child hugs the mother figure tightly, trying to shield her. Watching the scene, our boy remains silent in the face of the child's bravery. He observes the crying woman and the trembling girl beside her, realizing how unusual the situation is. Several thoughts rush through his mind, questioning whose child she is and why the young woman shared food with him earlier. In that moment, he also tries to understand the reason behind so much suffering. Despite the doubts, our boy firmly believes that if they stay together, they can become a real family. Determined, he vows to become a good husband and a reliable father, ensuring they will never cry again. Our boy silently promises that he will do everything so they never regret staying with him. As the sun sets, the air around the old wooden cabin turns cold. Inside the empty house, the trio sits on the floor, keeping their distance. Hand on his head, our boy laments the situation, feeling as though they have returned to the beginning after making progress. Still, he feels relieved to see that they are cautious rather than terrified of him. Suddenly, he comes up with an idea to ease the tension. Without hesitation, he moves closer across the wooden floor, pointing at his own chest, revealing his name as Kim Joo-han while pronouncing it slowly. Surprised by the gesture, the young wife lets out a small sigh of understanding. Extending his hand toward her, he asks to learn her name. Hesitant at first, the woman finally responds shyly, revealing her name is Riji. After hearing it, our boy repeats the word to remember it. Encouraged by the progress, he expresses that he finds her name beautiful. Then he turns his attention to the frightened little girl, trying to learn her name as well. However, the child retreats in silence, leaving him confused. Seeing her expression, he realizes she may not have been given a name yet. From that realization, Kim adopts a thoughtful posture, searching for a solution. With a gentle touch on the girl's head, he lets her know he will choose a special name for her. Inspired by a story from his world, he decides to call her Dorothy, based on a brave girl who travels through magical lands and meets many companions. His wish is for the child to find happiness and grow beautifully. Trying to get used to the sound, the little one repeats the name while he explains its meaning. Enchanted by the gesture, the new Dorothy shows a bright smile. Sometime later, outside the cabin, the makeshift lumberjack brings the axe down hard on a log. Hiding behind a tree, Riji watches him, thinking that man is very strange. She reflects that even though he is much larger than her former violent husband, the outsider treats her with unexpected kindness. To her, that mysterious giant feels entirely different from anyone she has ever known. She softly tries to pronounce his name, noticing how gentle his voice sounds despite the language barrier. Remembering her past, she admits to herself that she has never been treated with such care before. Watching him work tirelessly, she wonders about the reason behind his kindness. At that moment, Kim notices her watching from afar and waves, calling her over with visible excitement. Surprised at being seen, the woman focuses on his dark hair and eyes, quietly observing the man who has begun to change her world. An old piece of gossip crosses Riji's mind, recalling rumors that an enemy nation managed to summon a legendary hero. The legend describes an imposing warrior possessing the very same physical traits as Kim. While Kim walks calmly toward her, Riji continues analyzing the situation. With sunlight hitting him directly, she notices his features truly resemble the figure from the legend. However, the young wife soon dismisses the idea, reasoning that someone that important would be in a grand palace and not in a miserable village. Furthermore, she is aware that the summoning story is nothing more than a baseless rumor. As our boy gets closer, the native realizes his hair leans toward a brown shade, and when she studies his eyes up close, she notices the same warm tone, clearing her doubts. With a long sigh of relief, Riji feels reassured that he is just an unusually large but ordinary man. Yet right after, the young woman finds this comfort strange, remembering she met the giant only a few hours ago. Without understanding anything, the young man scratches his cheek in confusion while his wife trembles slightly and turns her face away in embarrassment. Captivated by her reaction, Kim shifts into a gentler posture and places his hand on his wife's head. Riji receives the touch, realizing she is not used to such kindness. The only reason a male hand had touched her before was to deliver blows. Even so, the hunter continues petting her hair in a careful and respectful manner. With her eyes closed, Riji enjoys the sensation and secretly wishes it would not end soon. Completely relaxed, Riji finds herself silently hoping her husband continues the affection. The outsider leans in slightly, feeling his face warm as he notices their closeness. The young wife lifts her shy gaze and looks at him with an inviting expression. Guided by the mood, they close their eyes and move closer. Kim suddenly widens his eyes and pulls back, breaking the moment. Okay, so he got his first kiss before GTA 6. Both step away abruptly and freeze in embarrassment. Attempting to hide the awkwardness, our boy turns his gaze aside and lets out a brief cough. To change the subject, he quickly walks toward an empty wooden bucket lying on the grass. With a firm grip on the handle, he focuses on the task, trying to distract himself from what happened. Moving quickly, Kim heads off with the bucket, leaving Riji behind. Riji remains frozen, her heart racing from the moment they shared. Already deeper in the forest, our boy walks along, feeling foolish as he wonders what she must think of him. He stops and places a hand on his head, stressed that they got married and met on the same day without even being able to communicate properly. Unsure how to act, he considers pretending that nothing happened. Suddenly, he freezes mid-step. Observing the darkness around him, our boy realizes he has wandered too far and no longer knows his way back. Just then, an eerie noise echoes through the trees. Determined not to take risks, Kim turns back, intending to collect water quickly and return home. However, a shiver runs through his body when something unusual appears. A gigantic black wolf with glowing red eyes blocks his path. The beast growls, ready to attack at any moment. Facing the monster, the young man steps back slowly, trying to remain calm. Seeing its enormous size, he finally understands the danger he is in. With no escape, he drops the bucket and prepares himself for the worst. Acting quickly, Kim grabs a thick branch from the ground to defend himself. Without hesitation, the wolf charges, opening its massive jaws. Using all his strength, he raises the branch to block the attack. Seizing the moment, the young man throws a punch directly at the beast, landing a heavy blow on its head. However, the force of the bite shatters the branch completely. Pressing forward, the monster leaps at him while he resolves not to fall here. Determined to survive, he continues striking, forcing the creature back. Even as he lands hits, the wolf resists and strikes back, injuring him as he groans in pain. The young man cries out as a burning sensation spreads through his body. Suddenly, confusion crosses his face as he feels something strange. An explosion of flames erupts in the middle of the struggle, startling the beast. His right arm becomes engulfed in intense magical fire. Faced with the heat, the wolf retreats immediately, letting out frightened cries. Cornered, the creature releases a desperate howl, trying to escape. Seizing the opportunity, Kim rushes forward and delivers a final flaming strike. Defeated, the massive wolf collapses lifelessly, smoke rising from its scorched body. Completely exhausted, our boy falls onto the grass, questioning what just happened after seeing his arm ignite. Raising his arm, he checks for damage, and is surprised to find no burn marks. Sitting there, he begins to consider the possibility that he used real magic. Connecting this to the glowing contract from earlier, he realizes he might be an overpowered MC that got isekai'd. With his eyes fixed on his hand, he decides to test the idea. Stretching out his arm, the young man attempts to summon fire by calling out a spell. Frustrated, he repeats the words several times and even tries different poses, but nothing happens. Disheartened, he lies on the grass and attempts other spell names without success. Staring at the wolf's remains, he even tries calling upon fire spirits and dragons, yet nothing responds. The silence makes him feel foolish. Scratching his head, Kim concludes it was not an illusion since his wounds partially healed, and he begins to dream of mastering this power. His greatest desire now is to use magic to become a skilled hunter and provide a better life for both of them. Relaxing on the ground, he considers how healing magic could help them survive in a village without doctors. Standing up calmly, he stretches and decides to study these abilities with patience. At that moment, dark memories surface, recalling the loss of his parents at a young age. The tragedy was followed by abandonment, with relatives blaming him for everything. Their hatred grew so strong that they accused him of bringing misfortune to everyone around him. Treated as a curse by his own family, the boy endured everything alone. Returning to the present, a melancholic expression crosses Kim's face as he pushes those memories aside. Refocusing, he turns his attention to the wolf's body and decides to take it home before other predators arrive. With the massive creature on his back, the young man begins his journey back home, planning to handle the heavy processing later. During the trip, he mentally thanks his grandfather for teaching him how to process animals, knowledge that proved useful in the forest. Walking under the moonlight, he feels a wave of longing, wishing the old man could see him now. To steady his thoughts, he shifts focus to his goal of learning how to control his newly discovered magical abilities. Meanwhile, inside the old cabin lit by a fireplace, Reggie carefully prepares food. Needing assistance, she asks the nearby child for a bowl. Little Dorothy happily hands it over and receives a gentle pat on the head. Overjoyed, Dorothy smiles brightly, feeling warmth from the new family. She then runs around the cabin in excitement, full of energy. Curious about the outside, she leans toward the window and peers into the dark night. While observing the entrance, Reggie notices movement and lets out a confused murmur. Suddenly, the head of a wolf-like monster appears, causing Dorothy to scream in terror and run away crying. Reggie is startled by the scream and quickly grabs a kitchen knife, preparing instinctively for danger. Holding the knife firmly, Raji runs toward the door, telling Dorothy to stay back. Upon reaching the entrance, she freezes at the sight outside. The young man appears carrying the huge beast remains, panting from effort. Hearing Raji's voice, he drops the load to the ground just as she rushes out in panic, believing he was attacked. Confused by the situation, he sits down near the entrance, observing their reactions. Raji stops abruptly when she realizes he is unharmed. Overwhelmed with relief, her strength gives out and the knife slips from her hand into the grass. She quickly checks him, while he reassures her that he is fine and only suffered a minor arm injury. Dorothy cautiously approaches and touches his leg in silence. Holding his wife's hands, he calms them both, insisting there is no need to worry. Relieved, Raji suddenly hugs him tightly. The young man tries to understand her reaction, realizing it is relief. Dorothy also clings to his leg while crying. Seeing this, he silently vows not to put them through fear like this again. Okay, I think I really need that Santa now. The next morning, the cabin is calm under daylight. The young man is already outside, processing the monster's remains on a wooden table. With careful cuts, he separates usable parts, sweat forming as the work takes longer than expected. He reflects that his grandfather made it look much easier. Exhausted, he considers improving his hunting methods for efficiency. After finishing the main portion, Reggie steps outside carrying a wooden bucket. He calls her name and she quickly approaches. After placing the bucket down, she gestures for him to store the meat inside. He understands and begins transferring it. He then tries to recall how to say thank you in their language. Hesitating, he awkwardly says thank you. Reggie becomes delighted and repeats the word back, confirming his pronunciation. The young man briefly worries he said something wrong, but she smiles warmly and reassures him. Reggie, surprised by his gratitude, becomes emotional while watching him work. She touches her lips, recalling their accidental kiss earlier that we got before GTA 6, causing her face to turn red. She wonders if he had ever shared such closeness with anyone before her, which makes her heart tighten. Suddenly, she runs toward him and tries to help with the work, finding it strange that he handles everything alone. In her rush, she accidentally bumps into him. Tension rises as she closes her eyes, expecting awkwardness. He leans in and gently kisses her forehead. She steps back, embarrassed by her own expectations. Without understanding her reaction, he moves closer again. Determined, she keeps her eyes open this time. Then he surprises her by giving her a soft kiss on the lips. She freezes completely. Nearby, the child watches silently from the doorway. Embarrassed by being seen, Riji quickly runs back inside the house. Later, the young man picks up the supplies and heads down the dirt path with the child following behind him. He turns back and gives a gentle smile, silently expressing gratitude. Still flustered, wondering if he forgot to properly acknowledge her by name. Right in the middle of the path, our boy places the heavy load down and properly calls Dorothy over. Radiant from the acknowledgement, Dorothy rushes in and helps push with all her strength. Meanwhile, inside the cabin, Lizzie strokes the dark fur of the hunted beast. From where he stands, our boy finds it odd that she is drying the smelly hide indoors. Suddenly, our boy understands the reason behind it, realizing the pelt holds great value. Excited, Dorothy helps clean the thick hide, fascinated by its softness as she touches it. The sight draws genuine laughter from Lizzie, while our boy smiles in quiet satisfaction knowing he has brought joy to his new family. The day moves forward peacefully on the quiet property near the forest. While preparing supplies, the meat is seasoned for preservation. Focused, our boy carefully observes the process to learn proper storage. Lizzie's happiness over saving the animal's fat relieves him, realizing it was not wasted. With a new goal forming, our boy feels the pressure to understand basic survival skills. Determined, our boy decides to quickly learn the local trading system to secure their future. Without hesitation, he stands, ready to return to work. Before he steps out, Lizzie rushes over and blocks the doorway. Confused, our boy asks if she wants him to rest longer, then assures her he has recovered and feels no pain. Gently touching her shoulder, our boy tells her not to worry and that he will not overexert himself. Lizzie watches silently as he walks out. Already in the forest, our boy studies the trees and decides they are suitable for woodcutting practice. Gripping the axe firmly, our boy relies on his strength despite lacking knowledge of proper wood selection. Without delay, he raises the tool and swings. Meanwhile, peace surrounds the cabin. Suddenly, Kim returns, carrying an overwhelming amount of firewood on his back. The sight leaves Lizzie and Dorothy deeply impressed. As soon as our boy sits down exhausted, Lizzie approaches, unsure of what to do. Worried, she begins massaging his arm despite his reassurance that everything is fine. Touched by her concern, our boy gently expresses his gratitude. Suddenly, Dorothy runs across the wooden floor, dips her hands into a basin and rushes back, splashing water everywhere. She throws water onto our boy, leaving him soaked and confused. Lizzie panics, trying to apologize for the child's behavior, but Dorothy simply stares at him, expecting praise. Understanding her intent, our boy pats her head and thanks her kindly. Encouraged, she runs to get more water, while Lizzie desperately tries to stop her. Later, as our boy dries himself by the fireplace with Lizzie's help, he reflects that everything feels like a dream. He never imagined having such happiness and silently vows to protect their smiles. Night soon falls over the isolated mountain home, with smoke rising from the chimney as the fire burns. Gathered around the table, the family shares a warm meal. Exhausted, Dorothy falls asleep beside it, and our boy gently strokes her head. Lizzie giggles softly at the peaceful scene. Carefully, our boy lifts the sleeping child and carries her to bed, while Lizzie begins cleaning up. He walks slowly and places Dorothy to the bed, ensuring she remains undisturbed. As they work, his hand brushes hers lightly, causing her to tense and grow shy. Noticing this, our boy becomes confused by her sudden silence. The atmosphere grows more intimate, and our boy gently pulls her into a warm embrace. Overwhelmed by shyness, Lizzie hides her face. Calmly, our boy holds her hand to reassure her that everything is fine. Their eyes meet with quiet affection, and our boy makes it clear she need not feel pressured. Leaning close, our boy tells her it is time to rest. Okay, I think we all know what happened next, right? Anyway, our boy thinks about Dorothy and Lizzie. He struggles to believe he finally has a family to protect. In a quiet thought, our boy hopes this happiness will never be taken away, and that they may live peacefully together. Far from such warmth, grand mansions stand as a reminder that wealth can never replace the simple joy found in this life. In that cruel medieval world, all peasant children grow up crammed together, sharing a single room with their parents. In her lonely past, Lizzie used to be filled with doubts about what couples actually did during the pitch-black nights. The only example she had was the shadow of her cowardly father, who filled the house with terror through his violent shouting. In her traumatic childhood, she would hide under the covers, listening helplessly as her mother cried through the night until dawn. That sickening past turned Lizzie's life into a nightmare ruled by fear, and she constantly worried about repeating her mother's fate. Suddenly, Lizzie's beautiful eyes slowly opened, chasing away the lingering nightmares. The crackling sound of the burning wood gently wakes her from her rest. Disoriented, she realizes she is lying on a bed instead of the hard floor where she fell asleep. Surprised by the care, Lizzie notices that our boy offered his arm as a pillow for her comfort. Embracing that warmth, Lizzie finally feels the peace she has long searched for. Watching him sleep, she realizes that nights between couples do not have to be frightening. She reflects on how her life has been changing ever since she met him. At that moment, our boy begins to wake slightly, catching Lizzie off guard. Still half asleep, our boy pulls Lizzie and Dorothy closer into a warm embrace. Her heart races from the sudden closeness, overwhelmed by emotions she cannot contain. Wanting the moment to last forever, she remains still in silence. Soon, the morning sun fills the cabin, fully waking our boy. Rising carefully, our boy leaves the bed without disturbing the still sleeping child, giving Dorothy a gentle pat before stepping away. Already awake, Lizzie enters carrying a wooden bucket. Quickly, our boy takes the handle from her to ease the weight, surprising her slightly. Without effort, our boy lifts the heavy container and pours the water into the cauldron over the fire. Turning toward her, our boy speaks in his native language, leaving Lizzie confused. Not understanding, she simply stares at him. Our boy asks if she slept well, then notices her face turning red. Lizzie nods, and our boy realizes his affectionate way of addressing her may have embarrassed her. Trying to adjust, our boy asks what he should call her, suggesting her name instead. Lizzie softly asks him to continue calling her honey, which brings a smile to our boy. Granting her wish, our boy gently repeats the term, making her hide her face in embarrassment. Flustered, she turns away, trying to conceal her emotions. Finding her reaction adorable, our boy feels tempted to tease her further. Lightly tapping her shoulder, our boy asks her to look at him. At that moment, Dorothy suddenly wakes with a small jump. Half asleep, she mumbles that she wants meat, then climbs down clumsily from the bed. Driven by hunger, the child rushes toward them but runs past without stopping. Her eyes shine as she spots a large piece of hanging meat. The couple bursts into laughter as she hugs the barrel, struggling to reach it. Watching her, our boy feels charmed by her innocence and excitement. Her hunger keeps her clinging to the wood, swinging her legs endlessly. Determined, our boy resolves to work hard on today's hunt to keep their supplies full. Walking confidently through the forest, our boy feels ready to face even another giant wolf. This time, our boy carries his axe, trusting it as a reliable weapon. His steps crush the damp grass as he moves deeper into the silent woods. Suddenly, our boy stops, sensing something unusual in the air. Turning quickly, our boy feels an overwhelming pressure fill the surroundings. Tightening his grip on the axe, our boy senses a suffocating presence despite the open space. Tense and alert, our boy prepares himself for whatever danger may appear. Heavy footsteps echo through the fog, revealing a figure approaching slowly. Instead of a beast, our boy realizes it is a human. The hooded stranger shows no hostility as he walks closer. As the figure's face becomes visible, our boy sees an older man with a thin beard. Suspicious of the strange pressure surrounding him, our boy wonders who this unsettling stranger could be. The scene shifted earlier, where the suspicious old man is seen observing the traces of the battle of our boy and the huge wolf. He concluded that the tracks are obvious, that our big boy is the one who defeated the huge wolf. He also concluded that our boy Kim doesn't even know how to use a sword nor a proper weapon, so he reached a conclusion. He will verify it himself. So that's where the last scene takes us. The old man noticed the scratches and bruises of Kim on his arm, concluding that they are definitely wolf bites. It even confused the man even more, wondering how the man's wounds have healed so quickly. Normally, it would have been infected by now. The old man had reached a terrifying conclusion. Our boy could have been a rare mage. You see, in this world, mages are extremely rare, and those mages possess extremely overpowered abilities. So if our boy is a mage, he can finally get revenge on something. With this reaction, it makes our boy even more confused. You see, this old man was once a vigorous young man. He was once a soldier on the battlefield and became one of the Lord's retainers. He adventured from village to village, leaving his father behind, hoping to become a hunter himself. He once stumbled upon a village overflowing with abundance, with the only lack being firewood. Even if the residents could enter the Lord's forest, they still chose not to do so. Then he soon found out why. He was attacked by goblins, rendering his leg useless. Much worse, these goblins that lived within the mountains kidnapped human women and bred with them to repopulate. Soon enough, the women in that village kept dying, and later it was discovered that there was an infamous goblin village. Injured, the old man could not do anything. Driven solely by revenge, he swore that he would burn the village into the ground, and that's where he met our boy. Okay, this is a lot of yapping for a romance manhwa. He sees the potential in our boy, big body, huge arms, and a BBC. On top of that is his healing ability, so he vowed to turn our boy into a hunter. Before that, he will need to form a contract first, and once that contract is formed, our boy won't be able to just run away. Even after bowing, our boy remains guarded. The old man then stated that he will now train our boy, not knowing that our boy here can understand their language. What a dumbass. The scene now shifted to our home, where the boy is seen getting ready while his wife and daughter is preparing food. Our boy Kim noticed the old man outside, but he don't want that suspicious old man to just come in the house with his family inside it, especially with that suspicious smile. Me neither. He get flashbacks where the smile is the same as his HR manager during salary negotiations. Our boy now try to prepare to leave, but before leaving, Lizzie can be seen hurriedly prepare a lunchbox. Dorothy is even helping. She blocked the door so our boy can't leave, making sure Lizzie put the lunchbox inside his bag, and telling our boy to eat properly. Kim thinking to himself that having a family that cares about you is wonderful. Before leaving, Lizzie told him to come back safely. Before replying that he will, she called Dorothy to say goodbye, to which she did. Thus our boy now says goodbye. We got a nice view of the two. Now I definitely need that Santa more than you guys. Walking to the dense forest, our boy thinks to himself that they have been walking for a while now. The old man mumbled something, signaling him to look on the ground. Noticing it, our boy sees that the footprints and walking of the old man is driven by curiosity and determination. Our boy slowly began copying the old man's movements. He carefully matched every step while following him along the mountain path. The old man clearly noticed what our boy was doing, yet he continued walking in silence without stopping him. From that day onward, the elder gradually started teaching our boy about the mountains and the hunter's way of life. Instead of teaching weapons or hunting techniques first, the old man focused on helping him understand the mountain itself. Later that day, Kim sat quietly on top of a large rock while the old man stood nearby. The elder calmly opened his bag and took something out before giving Kim a signal. The moment Kim saw it, his face brightened with excitement. At last, he believed he would finally be able to eat the lunch Lizzie had worked so hard to prepare for him. However, just as he opened the lunchbox, the old man immediately stopped him. The elder explained that food prepared by humans carried a strong scent through the mountains. If the lunchbox was opened there, wild beasts nearby would quickly detect the smell and gather around them. Kim's excitement instantly turned into disappointment. Slowly, he closed the lunchbox once again. Thinking about how Lizzie had woken up early in the morning to prepare the meal made his heart feel heavy. As the day continued, the old man eventually brought Kim to his house. Inside, he showed him several strange-looking bows. Their shapes and structure were completely different from ordinary bows. Without wasting time, the old man handed one of them to Kim and instructed him to follow closely. The moment Kim tried lifting the bow, he became shocked by its incredible weight. In contrast, the old man handled the heavy weapon effortlessly. He smoothly pulled back the string before releasing the arrow directly into the target without missing. Seeing such skill filled Kim with determination. He immediately attempted to shoot the bow himself. While the old man corrected his posture and stance, Kim focused intensely and tried to remember every detail. By the time the training finally ended, Kim realized something important. Becoming a true hunter required patience, discipline, and endless training. It was not something that could be mastered quickly or easily. Even so, he refused to lose motivation. Meanwhile, back at home, Dorothy lay quietly on the bed while softly talking to herself. Nearby, Lizzie sat beside the warm fireplace. As Lizzie rested near the fire, she happily rubbed her stomach. The meat had filled her so much that her stomach almost felt swollen. Dorothy quietly noticed the change in Lizzie. Ever since Kim arrived, Lizzie had been smiling far more often. Hearing her laughter created a strange sense of warmth inside Dorothy's heart. Slowly, Dorothy closed her eyes and hoped the food inside her stomach would digest quickly so she could eat even more later. But after a moment, another thought entered her mind. She started thinking about who Kim truly was. Lizzie had told her that Kim was her husband, but Dorothy understood that neither of them were her real parents. A small feeling of fear slowly appeared in her heart. Deep inside, she worried that they might someday abandon her just like her real father once did. The uneasy feeling lingered for a moment before Dorothy suddenly opened her eyes and quickly checked on the meat again. Seeing that it was still there immediately made her feel relieved once more. However, the peaceful moment did not last long. Soon, loud voices and angry arguments came from outside the house. Filled with curiosity and concern, Dorothy carefully peeked through the window. Outside, Lizzie stood face to face with three men. The men aggressively accused her of secretly hiding meat from them. Lizzie firmly explained that the meat had been hunted by her husband, but the men refused to believe her. Instead, they claimed they had helped her find a new husband after losing her previous one. They continued accusing her of being selfish and ungrateful. Before long, the situation became even worse as the men forcefully pushed their way into the house. Terrified by the sudden intrusion, Dorothy quickly crawled under the bed to hide. As the men entered deeper into the room, their eyes soon landed on the large black wolf. The moment they noticed the wolf, their expressions immediately filled with greed. But before any of them could try taking Hilda away, Lizzie stepped directly in front of them and blocked their path. With unwavering determination, she declared that they would not be allowed to take anything from her home. The yellow-haired bastard kept mocking Lizzie. He sneered, asking if her face showed that she thought life was worth living now that she had a different husband. Another man snickered, wondering aloud what would happen if the mountain guardian found out. The yellow-haired man replied carelessly, dismissing the concern by saying that the man did not even understand their language, and that as long as they kept their mouths shut, they would be fine. The others continued talking among themselves without the slightest bit of concern. One of them warned that it would be a problem if they were caught, noting that mountain guardians were hard to come by, and that it would be bad if that man left. Then the yellow-haired man grabbed Lizzie violently and dragged her toward the door. He announced that they would go to the forest, that he would take her, and told the others to grab the stuff. Lizzie desperately tried to resist. But before she could say anything, the yellow-haired man glared at her and warned her that she knew what would happen if she told her husband, that they would come in the middle of the night and burn down the cabin and everything else with it. After threatening her, the group finally left the house, dragging Lizzie away with them. A heavy silence filled the cabin. Slowly, Dorothy crawled out from beneath the bed, her entire body shaking. Tears welled up in her eyes as terrifying thoughts rushed through her mind. Lizzie had been dragged away. She feared that Lizzie might not come back. Dorothy tried to scream, but the moment a sound almost escaped her lips, she quickly covered her own mouth with both hands, terrified that the men outside might still hear her. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she curled into herself and cried softly. She whispered Kim's name through her sobs, begging him to come quickly. After that, Dorothy finally broke down completely and started crying. The scene then shifted to Kim, who was walking back and thinking to himself that the day had felt very long. His expression looked exhausted, but before he could continue, the old man suddenly called out to him. Kim stopped and respectfully bowed his head toward him. The old man sincerely expressed his gratitude for everything Kim had done that day, but at that exact moment, Kim heard a faint sound in the distance. He immediately recognized the voice. It was Dorothy crying. A cold feeling rushed through his chest as he suddenly began moving forward in a hurry. He thought to himself that Dorothy would never cry like that, and feared that something had happened at home. As soon as Kim arrived at the location, he did not hesitate for even a second. The very first thing he did was throw a powerful punch straight into the face of the red-haired bastard, instantly knocking him unconscious. The others froze in shock the moment they saw it happen. Without slowing down, Kim immediately moved toward another man who was wearing a wolf hide over his body. With a single knee strike, Kim completely took him down as well. Then his eyes locked onto the yellow-haired man. Kim grabbed him tightly around the waist and violently slammed him backward onto the ground. Before the man could even react, Kim started beating him mercilessly. Each punch carried terrifying force as rage poured out of him uncontrollably. Inside his mind, Kim's thoughts turned dark. He reflected that human nature was filthy and ugly, and that once people looked down on someone, it was over. Now that was extremely satisfying. After a moment, Kim slowly stood back up. A cold and overwhelming aura poured out from his body, but suddenly a sound came from behind him. The moment Kim turned around to look, the yellow-haired man took advantage of the opening and tried to attack him with a weapon. However, Kim instantly caught him before the attack could land. This time, it no longer looked like Kim intended to spare him, and the terrifying pressure around him only grew heavier as he tightly held the man in place. Just as the situation was about to spiral completely out of control, the old man suddenly arrived at the scene and shouted firmly, demanding that Kim calm down. He pressed further, asking if Kim could not see how frightened his daughter was. Hearing those words, Kim immediately turned toward the house. There, standing near the doorway, was Dorothy, still crying uncontrollably. The moment Kim saw her trembling figure, all the rage inside him suddenly faded away. The terrifying pressure surrounding him disappeared as his expression slowly softened. Lizzie quietly watched him from the side, her heart still beating fast. She thought to herself that he had always seemed so gentle, as if he did not even know how to get angry, and yet it turned out he could become frighteningly furious. Her eyes slowly drifted toward the men lying beaten on the ground. For a moment, while he was beating those men, he had reminded her of her late husband, and she had feared she might end up beaten just like them. A brief wave of fear passed through her, but the instant she looked into Kim's eyes again, that fear completely disappeared. Those eyes were not trying to scare her. What she saw in them was something entirely different. They were the eyes of someone who desperately wanted to protect her. She realized quietly that he looked like someone who feared she was afraid of him. Kim slowly walked toward her and softly called her name. At the same time, Lizzie lowered her gaze as countless emotions filled her chest. She thought bitterly, questioning why the reaction of a worthless woman like her would matter so much to him. Looking at her own trembling body, she continued in her mind, telling herself that there was nothing left for her to fear, and yet she could not understand why she was still trembling. That, she concluded, was why he thought she was afraid of him. Her chest tightened painfully as she looked at Kim's face. She wanted to beg him not to make such a pained expression. She wanted to tell him clearly that she was not afraid of him at all, and she knew the words themselves would have been simple to say, except that they did not understand each other's language. So slowly, Lizzie reached her hand forward and softly called Kim by name as she gently touched his hand. The warmth she felt from his hand instantly spread through her entire body, and with it, all of her fear quietly melted away. For the first time in a very long while, she felt completely safe. It felt as though, as long as she stayed beside this person, nothing bad could happen to her. Tears welled up in her eyes as she looked at him, and with a trembling voice filled with emotion, she thanked him.